There's some others to join us. I'll just do some brief introductions. I am Caroline Stakowiak, one of the program managers here at the National Volunteer Fire Council, and I will be moderating this session. I'd like to provide just a brief overview of the NVFC. We are the leading nonprofit membership association representing the interests of the volunteer fire, EMS, and rescue services. Our mission is to provide a unified voice for the volunteer EMS and fire organizations, and you can learn more about our programming by visiting nvfc.org. And because it is National Volunteer Week, I also want to mention our Make Me a Firefighter campaign, which provides free tools and resources to fire and EMS departments to help them recruit and retain their volunteers. If you aren't familiar with the campaign or you haven't been to the website in a little while, you can visit the department portal at portal.nvfc.org to check out what's available. As I mentioned, this is a free resource, and through the portal, you can post your volunteer opportunities on our national database. You can also access guides and trainings, and one of my favorite tools, our materials generator, which allows you to create customized volunteer materials. This evening, we are going to be discussing recruitment during these difficult times. And we'll also discuss how to best utilize the SAFER grant, which just opened. The SAFER grant focuses on retention and recruitment efforts for your departments. Joining me this evening, we have Dave Lewis. He is the NVFC's Maryland director. We have Tiger Schmittendorf, Vice President of Strategic Services and Public Safety at First Arriving, and John Kowalski, Marketing Strategist and Lieutenant at the Lone Oak Volunteer Fire Department in Signal Mountain, Tennessee. I will let everybody introduce themselves, so we'll start with you, Dave.
Well, thanks, Carolyn, and thanks everybody here for joining us this evening. My name is Dave Lewis. I'm a volunteer firefighter with the Odin Volunteer Fire Company in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. I've had a chance to serve my department now for 47 years. Been active. I had a chance to be a chief officer. I've been president. Now I'm just pretty much a life member, and I help out administratively wherever I can. On a broader scale, I've been president of our state firefighters association, and now get an opportunity to work at a national level with the National Volunteer Fire Council. Big with the Volunteer Fire Council, with the Health and Safety Committee, as well as the Homeland Security Committee. Certainly, health and safety is a big pulse for me right now, especially when we look at the number of issues that firefighters are running into with health and safety, and that's only further impacted by what's going on right now with the pandemic situation. So, been active with the grant program pretty much since its inception. I've had an opportunity to travel around the country and do presentations on the grants and how to be successful with grants, write a few articles for NVFC that have also appeared in fire engineering, and done webinars for NVFC on the grant program. So thank everyone for joining us tonight, and I hope you find your time here with us useful tonight.
Thanks, Dave. We're happy to have you with us. And next we'll move on to Tiger.
Well, thanks, Caroline. It's great to be on with the NVFC again. I've had the opportunity to do a couple of webinars for you in the past, specifically related to recruitment and retention. Similar to Dave, I have a fairly long tenure in the volunteer fire service, past chief officer in my own volunteer fire company, still writing backwards and enjoying taking on new roles in the department. About 22 years ago, I threw away a perfectly lucrative career in engineering and sales and marketing management to make my life in the fire service. And for the next 20 years, I served as the deputy fire coordinator for the Erie County Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, where I was responsible for the recruitment, training, and operations of our county's 97 fire departments and about 8,000 firefighters. So I tell people politely that that's my nice way of saying I'm really glad I retired. but was offered the opportunity to come on board as a part of first arriving, and now being able to help so many more people on such a larger scale, working very closely with the NVFC and helping you folks with several of your initiatives related to recruitment and retention, and really enjoy that relationship and just helping people be successful. And it's all recruitment all the time for me. So I'm excited to be a part of this conversation.
Happy to have you. All right, John, how about you?
Yes, thanks everyone for being here. My name is John. In Tennessee, outside of Chattanooga. I also serve as a public information officer, take care of all things marketing, social media, grant writing, as well as membership. Been with the department about 3.5 years, got kind of a late start in the game here, but I'm making up some steam quick here. Professionally, I'm a marketing strategist. I've been in the corporate agency and consulting sector for 20 plus years. So I've seen it all from that side of things. So kind of a marriage of the two, and loving it ever since. So thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks, John. So again, thank you to the three of you for joining us this evening. Before we get started, I'll just do a brief overview of the format for our Q&A session. Hopefully it will last about an hour, depending on how many questions we receive. I do already have a few predetermined questions in front of me, but we'd really like to get some questions from you, the audience here. So if you do have any questions, please write them in the comments under this video. And if we don't have time to get to everyone's questions, please send your unanswered questions to our communications coordinator. That's Matthew Odom, and you can reach him at matthew.nvfc.org. We'll also put his email in this video's description. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So I believe our first question this evening will be for Tiger. So as we stated, it's National Volunteer Week. This is a time when departments are typically in full recruitment mode. What are some of the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic to fire and EMS departments who are trying to recruit right now? And what can departments do to address these challenges?
Well, it's a great question. The obvious challenges are the isolation, the fact that we're not able to be out in the community the way that we would normally enjoy, the fact that even if we do engage with a potential prospect for our volunteer fire department, that we can only engage with them online. If most departments are like mine, our activities in the firehouse are limited solely to response. So we're not allowing outside people to even come and do station tours, even interact with us. So there's certainly the isolation factor that makes things difficult. So a lot of people have actually reached out to me in the last couple of weeks and just even asked the question, should we be even recruiting now? Or should we just sit back and wait? And my response has been that despite the fact we can't be together in person, we still need to stay top of mind in the minds and the hearts of our community, reminding them that we were here for them before this started. We've been here for them every day since, right along with them, caring for them and looking out for them. And the great news is when we all come together out the other side of this, we're still going to be there for them as well. And that's going to be a great opportunity for people to reach out and take advantage of the new opportunities that they're going to have to engage with their volunteer fire departments. One of the things that I'm seeing, anecdotally in my own community, across the area, across the state, and I think across the nation, and I just wrote an article about it last week, is that there's a lot of goodwill spreading in our communities. There's the mutual admiration events that are going on right now where the fire departments and police departments are, parading in front of their hospitals to say thanks to our healthcare workers who are on the front lines. There's a lot of folks reaching out to their local fire departments, police departments, and other public safety agencies to demonstrate, their appreciation for the situation that we're in as well. And it's really, not only my hope, but my forecast that we're going to come out the other side of this with a renewed sense of community. And I think hopefully a lot of people are going to get back to the old and maybe missing notion in some communities of neighbor helping neighbor. Maybe some people are reevaluating where they're at with their lives and thinking, you know what, I've had a good run. I survived this, and maybe now it's time to give back. And, we need to stay pinned to the top of their page, so to speak, and make sure that when they're looking for opportunities to re-engage with their community, looking for opportunities to give back, that it's the volunteer fire and emergency services that are at the top of their mind. And, there might be some other folks who, like I said, reevaluating where they're at, what they want to do. Some want to give back, and others may just be saying, you know what, I got to get the heck out of the house and do something. So we don't necessarily care what that motivation is, if it's for all the right reasons, but we want to be there for them and be at the ready to welcome them to the great opportunities that the volunteer fire service offers that I've long said are like absolutely no other volunteering opportunity out there. To be polite, we get to do stuff that nobody else gets to do, right? You don't have a volunteering opportunity where you literally knock down somebody's door and they thank you afterwards. You cut a hole in the roof and they're going to bake you cookies, right? There is no other volunteering opportunity in our communities that offers that level of connection and that just that true bond with the people in our neighborhoods and our communities. And while a lot of people themselves, might kind of fall back into isolation, we as a volunteer fire service need to keep recruiting. The most important thing there is we need to keep our message positive. You think leading up to this crisis, what some people feel is a crisis in the volunteer fire service across the United States was at the forefront of a lot of headlines, a lot of rhetoric online and offline. A lot of interviews that started with all the reasons people aren't volunteering. And that's the wrong message to send. We need to keep our message positive, and we need to look for every opportunity to maintain that level of interaction with our communities. And we need to remind them that the volunteer fire and emergency services is what's right about America.
Great, thank you for that response. John or Dave, do you have anything to add quickly?
Oh, what he says, good. Again, it is very tough. I know in my own area here, all the stations are pretty much on lockdown. Station visits have stopped, things like that. But we are, I don't want to compare it to 9/11, but it's kind of that. We're looked on very highly by the public right now because we are out there at the forefront. We're the fighters that are out there, as well as the hospital workers, and that to some degree is an opportunity for us that we shouldn't pass on. That when this is all over with, we invite them to become part of that. And not everybody has to be a nozzle in their hand firefighter, but there's a lot of roles within the fire service with administrative help, fundraising help, and fundraising is going to be a big thing because I know a lot of my own departments around here are wondering how they're going to make the next truck payment right now because bingo is shut down, carnivals are shut down, every fundraising activity that we've been able to look forward to is shut down. So we're going to need people across there. We're going to need people. Yes, we're going to need people in the front lines, and we're going to need people that are in the support roles too. And we should look at that. If you look at the typical SWOT analysis, there's that opportunity that we need to look at.
And Caroline, if I could just kind of add to Dave's comments there, and
Sure.
especially the relationship, and this is something I've thought about a lot, is how does this compare with post 9/11? You know, post 9/11, we saw a lot of people step up and engage. Probably some of them more based on emotion than necessarily logic. You know, thinking that I'm going to volunteer today and go work the pile tomorrow, and that wasn't a realistic necessarily expectation. But one of the things we need to do is ride this wave of heightened awareness of the fact the people who have been and are and still will be on the front lines, and prepare ourselves to be in a position to accept them and welcome them into our fire service families. You know, a couple of specific things to be doing, some innovative things that I've seen out there that departments are doing. One person I'll give a shout out to is my good friend Walter Campbell, the recruiter for the Burtonsville Volunteer Fire Department, and very familiar to the NVFC, and you see a lot of their apparatus and people in the marketing that the NVFC has done. But Walter is on top of his game, both with his keen ability to stay on top of pop culture and things that are going on, and doing some fun spoofing about some of the things that are going on in our society and tying it specifically to recruitment. But he and some others, like the Brighton Fire Department near me in Rochester, New York, you know, they're doing online informational sessions right now for people who have expressed an interest in volunteering. And that's a great opportunity to connect with people. It costs little to nothing. And it's just a way to stay top of mind and keep people engaged. And I don't think there's anybody out there who is going to not understand the delay, if you will, in the process, that it may be some time before we can physically meet them in person and truly, take them down the path to volunteering. But the more that we can do to create more opportunities to engage with them, to allow them to make sure it's the right opportunity for them, but also to help us figure out whether or not they're the right fit for our fire service family. All of those things are going to be advantageous to us moving down the road.
Sure. Great. All right. Sure, John.
Just to add in here to what the other guys said here, at my department, Lone Oak, we're all volunteers, and we've really, over the last several years, positioned our department as the hub of the community. Helps with recruiting, helps with fundraising, helps with getting people to events. So when, COVID-19 came here, we're continuing like the other guys. Even in-person trainings, we're doing it over the phone now. We're doing NVFC classes, getting our NIMS done. There's lots of stuff to learn and use this time wisely. But it's also pushing it out on Facebook. That's our primary channel. So if we realize there's a lot of people with children at home. How can we be that community service to help them? There's a lot of museum tours that can be done virtually. A lot of aquariums. So I've been posting things like that on our site, getting that out to the community, helping in that. You have someone that wants to be involved, but they don't necessarily want to be hauling hose through the woods. There's lots of things to do. Writers for grants, social media people, marketing people. There's a place for everyone. Mechanics for maintaining the apparatus. That stuff is costly. So not just think of don't just think of your fire family, but that extended family. Who has a spouse, a son, a daughter, going for a marketing degree? Who's a social media expert? Get them involved. Department. Expand that team, help get people involved. The more people are involved, the more ownership they're going to take and the stronger community you're going to have.
Great.
I know you got lots of questions, but I can keep going, but no, I'll stop.
Well, actually, we can move on to a question that we have for you, John. You know, we've been talking about how difficult in-person recruiting is because of social distancing restrictions, but we know there are ways to reach volunteers online. So could you elaborate on some of the additional ways that we can do this?
Sure. We do a lot of Facebook, whether it's posting about information about COVID-19, helping with, you know, we've had some of the women from the fire department and our community center hand sewing masks. So getting that word out, we're distributing them to people's mailboxes between, you know, this time and that time on this date, you know, get us your list. So it's organizing those lists, you know, while the that we also have, thankfully, we did a nice open house last fall, which we had a photography or videographer student from one of the local colleges. He was looking for some material for his portfolio, some real world experience. And, you know, volunteer budgets are slim to none. So it's like, come on up, I'll give you a free, you know, a couple hot dogs, you know, knock yourself out. He filmed the thing, he put it, you know, edited it down, gave us this beautiful package. It's on Facebook. That's a real sense of our department when we're showing that. So I refer to people a lot of times. We have photos of training sessions of, you know, whether it's a wildland fire that we're on. And I think, you know, to elaborate, I think on Tiger, what you said of people coming together now, they see us on the front line. You know, if you've been hearing the news, we had a unique situation about a little more than a week ago here in Chattanooga. We had tornadoes come through. So you put that on top of you want to see the community. So it's, you know, setting up command and getting all of these mutual aid partners from police, fire, utility, delivery, you know, transportation, coordinating all of these, and then the outpouring from the community, from our community, you know, our Lone Oak community, as well as the surrounding areas. It's just overwhelming, but it has to be coordinated and it has to be organized. And, you know, you don't want to cause even more chaos than there already is. So it's, you know, a little bit of marketing. One message, and if you keep saying the same thing over and over, people are going to understand, people are going to get it, and people are going to know exactly what you need them to learn or what you need them to do in a time of, you know, COVID-19 or, you know, natural disasters like tornadoes.
Thanks, John. And we are getting a little bit of breakup with your audio and video. So I may ask you to call in before we go to your next question.
I'll do that right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dave, let's move on to you and discuss a little bit about the SAFER grant. So the application period is open now until May 15th. For those on Facebook who may not be familiar with SAFER, could you provide some additional details about what the SAFER grant does?
It's a great question, Caroline. I often, you know, kind of get puzzled when people don't take advantage of all three of the grant programs, AFG, SAFER, and Fire Prevention and Safety, which, by the way, Fire Prevention Safety opens next week. And AFG is currently being evaluated for the application period that closed a little bit over a month ago. I had a chance to write an article for NVFC last year that talked about, and I kind of put it in a fire triangle, which is something firefighters understand. You have, in order to have fire, you got to have heat, fire, you know, heat, fuel, and oxygen. Similarly, in order to serve the mission of your department, you got to have the equipment, you got to have people, and you ought to have a community risk reduction approach. So that's the three sides of the triangle. And the three grant programs equate directly back to
join the meeting.
Directly back to that. SAFER is one that we often ignore as volunteers, because most departments look at SAFER as that's the grant that hires paid people. And that's not exactly true. SAFER has two portions to it. The largest portion is to, yes, it is hiring to paid people. And oh, by the way, volunteer departments, if you really are at the point where you can't meet your staffing requirements and you feel like it's time to add some paid people, even maybe if it's daytime, just daytime, because that's your difficult time. That maybe Monday to Friday, you want to put some, one or two people in the station to make sure that you have constant staffing. Volunteer departments can do that. But the big portion of it, the part that we really looking at is that SAFER provides a 10% of the funding, which means $35 million is out there to support recruitment and retention efforts. So here's a couple of things you need to think about. What is your department's capability of meeting NFPA 1720? People say 17, oh, here we go, NFPA again. And the 1720 says that, you need to get, you need to put 4 people in the fire scene as quickly as you can. And it doesn't put a time frame into it. 1710, which looks at the paid departments, actually says a time frame and how many people need to be there, because they're closer together. Whereas we recognize a lot of rural departments, I can't tell you to be there in 6 minutes if the call is 30 miles away. It's just not practical. But we ought to be able to gather 4 people there. And oh, by the way, that also meets OSHA 2 in, 2 out requirements within a reasonable time frame. And can you do that consistently? And the highest priority is actually going to go to the highest priority for the SAFER grants for volunteer recruitment is going to be the departments that can't meet 1720, because that's where the greatest need is. The other part is the needs analysis. And we kind of almost approached on that a few minutes ago with some of the last questions. What kind of people do you need? Do I need firefighters? Do I need mechanics? Do I need secretaries? Do I need a treasurer? Do I need somebody to write grants? What is your needs analysis? Obviously, the highest priority is going to be to those people that are out on the front lines fighting fire. Then, then there's all kinds, now let's put together the recruitment program. And certainly the first thing is make sure you have somebody in charge of it. There has to be somebody that's a coordinator. A band can't play without a conductor leading the orchestra. And the same way with the recruitment program. Somebody has to be there to keep the tempo up, make sure that everybody's singing to the same thing. And then we have to have a marketing strategy. What is our marketing strategy? How are we going to reach them? And put that together. And then we got to train them. Say, oh, well, we can't afford to do that. Well, that's a good thing. You look at the SAFER and what's available in SAFER is there are funds out there, number one, to give that new recruit an entry-level physical, which is very important for health and safety. Second of all, to pay them for training. And oh, by the way, SAFER will pay for their set of turnout gear. You can put all those things into SAFER, as well as a number of other things. And volunteer departments throughout the United States, I'm sometimes just puzzled why they don't take more advantage of the SAFER program for recruitment. You've got about 4 weeks left. It closes on May 15th, but the applications out there, and that information's out there in terms of what is eligible. And there's $35 million will go a good ways across the United States to help volunteer departments. And I'd encourage everybody to look at that.
Thanks, Dave. That was a great overview. Tiger or John, do you have anything to add on the SAFER grants?
I'll just add kind of a couple of pro tips, so to speak, because in my business, we see a lot of folks who have secured SAFER grants, and we get to help them, in the administration and execution of them, and help them be successful with what they've acquired and been awarded. I do see a tendency for people to get a little too specific with their grant applications. I encourage heavy use of the phrase "including but not limited to," so that it gives you the flexibility to demonstrate that you do have a solid and comprehensive marketing plan in place that includes strategy, typically a recruitment-centric website, online materials and online marketing. There should be a training component to even the recruitment piece of it. A lot of emphasis on offline materials that could be everything from paper products, so to speak, from flyers and posters and things of that nature, but don't hesitate to be creative with that as well, and reach for the stars, but still be realistic and what can you use in terms of hard goods to engage and interact with people, especially at public events. John mentioned, that they do a lot of things in their community, and under normal conditions, bring the community into their firehouse, frequently, and that's a great posture to take. It's I've long used a phrase referring to the volunteer fire department as the social epicenter of the community. And if you can achieve that status and maintain that relationship with your community, you're much better off. So looking at what hard goods can we invest in that not only is going to make us look good and sound and look and be professional, but also sustainable beyond the grant performance period as well. So video is a big component of that as well. The shelf life of a video is greatly extended beyond the performance period. And again, just building a overall comprehensive marketing strategy and plan, while at the same time not getting too detailed that says I'm going to buy 27 8.5 by 11 posters and 49 11 by 17s, and I'm going to do exactly 3.7 newsletters per year and things of that nature. It's just demonstrating you have a good plan in place that touches all of those bases, both offline and online. I'm a marketer by trade and heavily engaged in social media, but I know well enough that you need those supporting materials to at least show people and tell people how to find you online. So, it's not just about being on Facebook or any one of the other social media channels. It's more about having a comprehensive effort that allows people to find you online. And, from our perspective, while a lot of people think that all they need is social media, having a recruitment-centric focused website where it becomes the clearinghouse for everything you want someone to know about joining your organization is essential. Social media is great, but those are only sound bites. So you need some place to bring them back to. The other thing that I see as kind of a pitfall of the SAFER grants is a lot of departments are looking to either extend the incentive programs that they have or start new incentives from scratch. One of the challenges with that is, one, if it's not sustainable beyond the performance period, how are you going to keep that going, and can you afford to do that in your department? And are people then going to fall away because you no longer offer that incentive? But overall, I see a lot of people who focus a lot of their overall SAFER grant application on what could be lumped under retention. That's the incentive programs and LoSAP programs and the turnout gear and the training and all of that. All of that is fantastic, and I certainly encourage you to seek those opportunities. But none of it does any good if you don't have any people to recruit to offer those retention and incentive programs too. So you need a balanced application, you need a balanced program. I've been doing this long enough that experience tells me that regardless of whether you're flush with volunteers or you've managed to flush your volunteers, we can no longer afford to take our foot off the gas pedal of filling that front end of the pipeline. So doing so allows us to be more selective, focusing on quality versus quantity, and that also helps some other people that are hanging on solely because they're afraid nobody's coming after them to either slow down or step away as appropriate. So those are my two big things related to the SAFER grant. Make sure that it's balanced both between recruitment and retention. And then secondly, don't get yourself so detailed that you paint yourself into a corner.
And just to add on to those two,
yes,
if I could, have, like they both mentioned, have a plan. What is the plan? Who are you talking to? What types of channels or things, marketing things, do they respond to? Is it a physical event? Is it a online post? It really gets back to knowing your community and how they wish to be communicated to. And then also metrics. Metrics is another big thing that marketers always disregard or say, oh, I'm going to get to that later. If you're not measuring things along the way, how do you know it's either succeeding or whether you need to make adjustments? So you have to have metrics in place, and, you know, to follow up the other gentleman too, sustainability. Is it sustainable past the SAFER grant? Do you have a comprehensive plan in place to get you through that time period and beyond? Is it, you know, assigning an officer to take, you know, a one-on-one mentor-mentee relationship with these new recruits to help guide them through what they need to be trained on, what online courses they need to take, and kind of do it that way. That's one approach. But it has to be sustainable. You have to measure what you're doing, and you have to really have a plan. And that plan, not set in stone, because plans always change, but you have to have a direction. You know, here's where we are now. Here's where we want to go. Fill in the blanks. How are you going to get there? That's what, that plan you're going to work.
Thanks for adding that, John. So I think at this point, we'll go to our first audience question, and this is from John Walter. If a department continues to recruit during this time, what do you recommend to keep recruits engaged while waiting for training or other events to open back up? This individual feels that there might be a real lag after bringing them on. Does anyone want to take that question first?
You know, that's a constant problem, even if we weren't in these times, because a lot of times, depending on, you know, if you're using state school systems or whatnot, it may be several months. And I know we find in my own department that we lose potential recruits that have joined the department, thought that they were going to start training tomorrow and start riding the next day, and it becomes a surprise to them in a hurry that it's not that quick. And so we try to get them engaged. You know, our duty crews, we operate on duty crew because we're staffed, our volunteers are staffed in our station 24 hours a day. So even in the evenings, most nights our duty crews are training, and we invite the new members out there. There's a limit to what we can let them do because we don't want to put them beyond their training for you know, looking at safety, but let them participate, let them observe, let them feel part of the department. We encourage all of our new recruits to, you know, come in and assign themselves to a duty crew, even though that they aren't going to stay there. They don't have to stay there all night, but come around there 2, 3, 4 hours at night. In these times, yeah, it's a little bit tough. And I think it's been mentioned before that, you know, there are a number of online training resources that are available. Knock out some of the low hanging fruit now. You know, get that maybe that CPR training out of the way, you know, some of the hazmat training, some of the NIMS training, get that stuff out of the way so you actually do feel like you know, you're engaged and you're active, and it's not just making you feel good, but it really is the necessary training, you know. And then when you get ready to, you know, get engaged with either your firefighter or your EMS training, you've kind of taken some of the prerequisites, if you would, out of the way during this time of lag.
Well, I think another thing to add to that as well, Dave, and I think those are great points. One of the things that, you know, giving them homework assignments is also going to do is it's going to test their level of commitment. You know, if during this downtime and this, you know, pre-onboarding period in their what hopefully is going to be a lengthy career, if they're not willing to make the investments now, what should ever make us think that they're going to be committed to this once we get them onboarded, you know, invest a lot of time, energy, and money on them, get them to the point of raising the right hand. And, you know, it should be no surprise to us that if they're not willing to do the homework up front, they're probably not in it for the long haul either. It's no different that during, you know, the old normal, I always used to say that regardless of how long it takes somebody to go from moment of inquiry to moment of raising the right hand, whether that's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days or longer, I truly believe we have to increase both the quantity and the quality of the interactions that we have with that individual. Again, for the two purposes that I mentioned earlier, helping them make sure, you know, as early on in the process that it is the right opportunity for them. If after the first couple of interactions, they say, you know what, this is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I really don't think this is going to work. Perfect. No harm, no foul, no judgment. But we want to come to that conclusion as early in the courting process, so to speak, as we can, to save our, everybody a lot of time and energy. If on the other hand, if their level, the opportunities that they have to interact and engage with them are increased, and that further motivates them to get more excited about anticipating that opportunity for when they can do it hands-on and in this setting, actually meet the people they're talking to and so forth, then that's a great thing too. So, we need people. The fire service, and especially the volunteer fire service, is great at rushing into things. We're not necessarily good for the long haul. And this COVID-19 pandemic will be a real test for our patients and our attention spans and all of that. So looking for all the great training opportunities that Dave mentioned. My department has gone to Zoom-based Tuesday night drills. Anecdotally, I think we've been doing it for 3 weeks, and every Tuesday night during the middle of our Zoom trainings, we've been interrupted for working fires. So I highly recommend people use Zoom for their online training. Mm-hmm. So that's the story there, right? But there maybe allow them to interact with your other members via Zoom or some other online platform, Google Hangouts, whatever the case may be. Again, going back to Walter Campbell and others that are doing online information meetings, I think that's a great opportunity to, like I said, do some pre-weeding for both the fire department and making sure that it's the right fit for the individual as well.
Yeah, with Zoom, with technology today, there's no reason why you can't do an interview with your executive committee or with the officers, or to have a one-on-one conversation, between an officer and a new recruit, and to knock out the low-hanging fruit, like you mentioned, Tiger.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you, guys. It looks like we have another comment and question from the audience. This one is from Brian. He says, unfortunately, we aren't even allowed to have new members or potential members who do not have certifications to be in or around the station until the county ends their suspension. The only people who can be at the station are the ones who are staffing. Do you have any advice for, I guess, this department?
Hi, Brian. Yeah, that's a good question. And I think Tiger and John already kind of alluded to that, the use of Zoom and some of the technology platforms that we have. Some of the stuff I mentioned earlier obviously require those folks to be in the station, and my department, like yours, doesn't allow anybody other than the duty crew that's there to respond to be in the station. So I think we had to maximize our opportunities to use some of this technology that maybe we were a little bit uncomfortable before, and maybe to take us out of our comfort zone and use it and find out, gee, this really does work. Maybe we need to expand upon that.
John, I know you had a comment as well.
Oh, yeah. I think just, with the state of volunteer departments in the country, now's a perfect time to not only, keep the pedal down to the floor, but see if it'll go any further. You might have a captive audience sitting at home. Have a Q&A session with your audience via Zoom, via Facebook of, hey, what's it like being a firefighter? What's it like being an emergency medical responder? Tell me. And, just have an open dialogue. You're talking with these people about the same thing in person at an open house or at an event. This is just a little bit different way of doing things. And once you get beyond that comfort level, it can really be a great tool. And it shouldn't slow you down.
Great. Thanks for that advice. Tiger, do you have anything else you would like to add?
Well, just related to that, one, I think I appreciate and I tend to agree with the policy that we should only have, qualified staff in the station at this time. It's for everyone's benefit. Not only are there so many uncertainties and unknowns, but the stress level could be considerably higher than it normally is, just because of every time we do go on a call, we wonder if that's going to be the one that we're potentially exposed to something that we have no control over. I'm aware of some departments that are seeing less members responding because of the inherent dangers of the calls that we're going to. Even talking to some volunteers who, as crazy as it sounds, feel like they have greater control over their own safety inside a burning building than they do going on an EMS call right now. And, I refer to this pandemic as the CO virus, as in carbon monoxide, because just like carbon monoxide, it's odorless, it's colorless, and in so many instances, by the time you have the symptoms, it may be too late. So I do think that we need to be, aware of and acknowledge the fact that the current situation could actually be a deterrent to some people. But at the same time, we need to take advantage of the people who demonstrate an interest in volunteering, who say, you know what, to heck with that, I'm going to step up and I'm going to engage and I'm going to give back, and I'm not going to let this virus keep me back from doing that. So there's definitely both sides to that. Again, we have to be aware of it. We need to acknowledge that. Again, not make judgments on people, whether it's now those who aren't necessarily responding, the current volunteers, or other people. There's career public safety organizations that have had to literally shut down and suspend operations because they've been physically affected by the virus. And that's a harsh reality. So we're in this together. We're going to get through it together. But we need to be aware of some of these maybe impacts that we hadn't quite anticipated.
Great, thank you all for that advice. I have another question that I think all three of you could probably help answer, and that's related to, we're facing some major challenges right now, but there is an upside. So is there anything that volunteer departments can look forward to?
I think, with the SAFER grant just being, opened up, you got time, you're at home, right? Take a look at your needs analysis and don't ask for everything, prioritize and, see what makes sense and, go back to that plan and do it systematically and have metrics in place. I think use this time for recruitment, of using the technology and the tools we have to bring community together when, a lot of them may be losing hope or maybe feel isolated. Set up just a dialogue, a chat, have coffee, have coffee with whoever wants to show up, things like that will help bring people together, will help strengthen the community. They're going to remember that when things go back to normal and you're standing around in an open house. Oh, I remember you. You had coffee with me. We talked about this. It may have nothing to do with the fire service or a fire department, but just the fact that you were there, it's still serving. It's still being a friendly voice, face, showing that you care about, person X in your community.
Thanks. Tiger or Dave?
Well, I think, we all have to look for brighter days ahead, that we have to remain positive in this. Otherwise, there's a lot of mental health issues going with this too. And maybe a little bit of physical health too, because we're in the house and we don't get out much, but we have to look for better days ahead. And I think that we are, we're on high regard, and the fire department in most communities has been the center of the community, and they look for us for leadership. And I think that again, there's an opportunity for us to show that we were there when you needed us, and now we need you. We need you to help us because we lost our fundraising. We need you to help us because we need some people. And I think there are better days ahead, and we need to. I think as John says, what is your needs analysis? Where are the shortfalls? Kind of do that internal SWOT analysis. Look at where you are and how you can come out of this and benefit from it.
Yeah, and I always try to focus on a message of hope. And again, relating to the article that I wrote related specifically to recruiting during times of crisis that I just recently shared. Two things about that. Just like post 9/11, heroes are still in fashion. So, at our core, the role of fire and emergency services, public safety, as I say, our two core missions are first, to give the people we serve the peace of mind that we've made the proper investments in our people, our resources, our capabilities, and our training. And our second core mission is, should something bad happen, and we know that it will, if we do absolutely nothing else, we will bring calm to chaos. And if we can accomplish both of those, everything gets a lot better, a lot quicker. And if we can't accomplish either, frankly, we have no business being there. So keep doing what you're doing. As John and Dave mentioned, be the voice of your community, be the clearinghouse for the information that they need to keep themselves safe. And it's not necessarily just related directly to the COVID crisis. Fires are still occurring. And my experience is we're seeing a lot of oven fires and more meat on the stove type fires and things of that nature, obviously as a direct result of people being home longer and cooking at home and so forth. So we can't, walk away from our traditional fire and life safety messages any more than we can, ignore the virus. So be the hero to your community that they're looking for you to be. And I know we shy away from that term, but like it or not, that's how they look at us. And being the hero, as the other two gentlemen mentioned as well, doesn't necessarily mean the people, running into the burning building as all the sane people are running out. The hero today has been redefined. And it leads me to my second part of that is, to quote Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers. Right? Think of the term that's used almost incessantly today: frontline workers. Well, fire, emergency services, public safety, and specifically volunteer firefighters and EMTs, we were the original frontline workers. We were, we are, and we will still be. So as we look for target markets or audience that perhaps otherwise might be untapped, look for the helpers, look for the people who, by virtue of not having a choice as to whether or not to come in human contact with other people, are now the frontline workers, the real heroes, the people putting themselves in harm's way in a situation where they have very little control over the outcomes. Look for those types of people and offer them the opportunity to step up and say, hey, you are a frontline worker as a grocery store clerk or, whatever the case may be, considered essential services during that time of crisis. How would you like to be one of those people all the time? Well, we have a great opportunity for you. And again, it's a volunteering opportunity like absolutely no other. So look for the helpers.
Just to add to that, we've had, before COVID hit and everything, we've had great success with recruitment of young retirees, I guess, people who are newly retired that have time on their hands, they're physically healthy, they're mentally sharp, they want to give back, they want to help. We have some great certified driver pump operators that do that. Some people that have just gone through EMR school and have their state certifications. They're not going to be lugging the hose lines, things like that. But you know what? They're running command. They're pumping the water. They're doing, running water shuttles. that is absolutely essential, and you don't need to be a 20-something to do that. We need everybody. Everybody can help that wants to help. There's a place for them in the fire service.
I actually wrote a forecast in 2001, post 9/11, that said the survival and success of the volunteer fire service relies on our ability to create more opportunities for more people to volunteer less time. More opportunities for more people to volunteer less time. And I say the math of that is the job that used to take 10 people, 10 hours a week to do, now requires us to recruit 20 people who only have 5 hours to give you. So it's a division of work challenge. But to me, it's literally the premise of the Fire Corps program, right? As promoted by the NVFC. The whole purpose of Fire Corps, as I tell people, is to bring people into our fire service family to do all the stuff that we as firefighters didn't sign up to do, right? Not menial tasks, not unimportant work, critical tasks that still are required to run the business of emergency services. Nobody signs up to a volunteer fire company with the aspirations of one day being bingo chairman, right? Or roads and grounds chairman. They want to, ride fire trucks and, get to the exciting things that we need to do. But all those other tasks and those programs are essential to the big picture of running a volunteer emergency services organization today. So not to diminish those tasks whatsoever, they're equally critical to our overall success. So as Davis mentioned and John mentioned, look for more opportunities to get more people involved who in most instances have less time to give you.
Thanks. So we are going to move into our last question, as it is almost 8 o'clock here on Eastern Time. This one comes from the audience. So this is from David Schroer Jr. Is the SAFER grant usable for nighttime coverage of volunteer departments? If so, is it only available for new recruitment, or can it be for members who have already been on board? So will it pay for, say, volunteers to stay and work those night shifts?
That's a great question, David, and I'm glad you asked that, because when I talked about SAFER earlier, I only hit on half of the equation, and that's the recruitment side. The other half of our equation is the retention side, and SAFER does provide the opportunity for both recruitment and retention. And you have to look inside your department. Where's your greatest challenge? I have a SAFER grant for my own department, and I can tell you that I have more money in retention than I do recruitment, because I'm fortunate enough that we do get enough recruiting members coming in on a regular basis, but I need to make sure that I keep them there. And so we did. We pay for the plaques and the awards that we give at our annual banquet. We pay people training incentives. They complete a training class. We were able to give them a small gift card in order to kind of basically compensate them for their time and their fuel use to go to class. We provide opportunities for people to take advanced training, like we send people to FDIC and other major conferences each year, and those are incentives. Certainly also we look at, where are our top responders and how can we do that? There's also an opportunity under SAFER to actually pay for stipends. We don't do that, but I know many departments do that. You have to be cautious with that, because there are limitations to how much you actually can pay people in cash before they become a part-time employee and no longer a volunteer. And so you have to be careful with that and consult with probably your accountant, as well as the program guidance. But there are many departments that I reviewed a number of SAFER applications that are paying stipends in order to do that, in order to meet that. Or you provide them some other type of incentive. Maybe you go into a point system, and if they accrue so many points in a month, they get so much, and maybe at the end of the year, the top responders get that new set of turnout gear that you were able to buy, or something like that, some type that incentivize the people that are there. So retention is a very important part of SAFER and should not be overlooked, as well as the recruitment.
Thanks, Dave. Tiger or John, do you have anything to add, maybe in a minute or less?
Well, regardless of what the incentive is that you're thinking about either writing a safer grant for or even implementing in your department, a lot of people ask me, what's a great incentive to keep our volunteers motivated, or, you know, to keep them coming, turning out for more calls and so forth. And my stock answer is, why are you asking me? Ask your volunteers what they want. Because in most cases, it's not going to be financial incentives. It's basic human motivators of a simple thank you, or if there are other ways that you can make their lives easier, or more importantly, especially if you're talking about a night crew or something of that nature, make sure you're targeting the right audience with your incentives. And that's the people who are making the real sacrifices. And those are the people who don't leave the dinner table or don't get up in the middle of the night, but the ones who are left behind every time we get to go and have another opportunity to go and do what we love. So target the right audience with your incentive programs.
Yeah, I can't add to that. All good from those guys.
Well, all right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our time together, and I just want to thank Tiger, Dave, and John again for working with us and being on this special Q&A session. And I also want to thank the audience for joining us this evening. If you have any questions that we were unable to get to, or if you think of anything after the session, please email Matthew, our communications coordinator, at matthew@nvfc.org. And I also just like to mention Volunteer Voices. If you think of a question that you'd like to post there, you can join a conversation or begin a new conversation and as an NVFC member. If you're not a member, you can join us today by visiting nvfc.org/join. We'd love to have you. And I think that's it for tonight. I want to thank everyone once again and have a great evening.
Great. Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.